This Coast to Coast Entertainment Network program is brought to you by Beside Me Bracelets. Our bracelets are handmade for any occasion. Use the promo code Coast to Coast for 15% off. Visit their website at besideme.com. Suzanne's Paparazzi Jewelry. With 24-hour shopping available, use the code 160920 and show her some love, like she showed us. Reaper Apparel Company, a commitment to live your most authentic way every single day. Visit reaperapparelco.com for more information and a look at all of their apparel offerings. And by Good Day Embroidery, your local source for custom embroidery, screen printing, and more. Log on to gooddayembroidery.com for more information. Taco Tuesday means sports talk on this Tuesday, June 18th on the Coast to Coast Entertainment Network. Alongside that man, James Gonzales from up in Oceanside, California. Yours truly, Callan McClurg in San Diego. We are welcoming you folks back into another live edition of Coast to Coast Entertainment's late night sports talk show. That, of course, is C2C at night. Mr. Gonzales, glad to be back with you here, my man. We took last week off while I was at the Pottery game versus the Oakland Athletics, but good to see you, man. How we doing tonight?
Oh, I'm good. You know, we had maybe one of the best playoff hockey games ever tonight. It was just a crazy second period. So much other stuff going on in sports. It's a good time of year.
Great time of year. And, of course, folks, we are back with you here, as we usually are on Tuesdays here on C2C at night. Again, yours truly, Callan McClurg and James Gonzales here, staying up late on a beautiful, warm, and breezy and toasty Tuesday evening here in San Diego, folks. A quick heads up, we are getting closer and closer. We are literally, folks, 48 hours away from the Elite Draft League starting up operation on our network with our podcast of Puck and Roll. Again, we will, folks, be debuting our first episode live here on June 21st, here at around 7 o'clock local time. We'll have more details about that later on in the show this evening. But as always, folks, if you're joining us live here on this Tuesday, we invite your input as always. Questions, comments, or concerns in the live chat box. We'll do our absolute best to make sure your commentary is read live on the air here this evening. With that, James, before we dive into all of the talk tonight, man, of course, a lot of great stuff going on in baseball and basketball, hockey, the WNBA, you name it, man. But, of course, we have to start off, though, man, with what's been a very chaotic couple of days for the sports family. The losses of Bill Walton, the losses of and the loss of Jerry West. But now, though, James, literally mere hours ago on this Tuesday, the Say Hey Kid, Willie Mays, sadly passed away per an announcement made by Major League Baseball and by the San Francisco Giants roughly within the last few hours on this Tuesday at the age of 93, I believe. And, of course, though, James, I was working Little League Baseball today, and that news came down during the game I was working in it, and it really, James, like was another shot to the like a slap to the face that the sports world has now lost Bill Walton, Jerry West, and now Willie Mays. So I think, though, James, you want to talk about a amazing resume, 24-time All-Star, 12-time Gold Glove winner. Of course, made the famous catch that we always see in highlight reels of him going all the way back at that very spacious center field at the Polo Grounds, making that basket catch with his, back towards the plate. And then him bridging the gap between the New York Giants and their move to San Francisco. And then his time in the Army, serving during the Korean War, coming back to the game and how long his career lasted. I think, though, James, more importantly, Willie Mays ending his career back where it began for him with the New York Mets, but back in New York. Talk about a full circle moment and time for Willie Mays. And I think, James, a massive, 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 and pun intended, though, but giant loss for the baseball family. Literally, James, 2 days away, too, from them going back to Alabama to play the game between the Giants and the Cardinals at the historic Rickwood Field down there, which is America's oldest ballpark, where I think Willie played a lot of his games in the Negro Leagues in this particular ballpark. There's been a lot of pageantry leading up to this event on Thursday in wake of Juneteenth on Wednesday. But, James, man, tough day for baseball, the Giants, but more importantly, I think, though, James, for baseball across the board with the loss of Willie Mays earlier today on this Tuesday.
Whew, where to begin? Yeah, it's been a chaotic couple of weeks, like you mentioned. A lot of the, Hall of Fame heroes, like people you read about at first, then somehow you're able to watch videos on or anything you could watch, and now, everything has come full circle. You could watch anything on YouTube and everything. Um, Bill struck me hard, and then Jerry West, of course, struck me hard because he was in the Clipper organization, did so much for all the teams he's been on. And then, yeah, Willie Mays today, probably the best player who wore number 24 in MLB. Um, I know that's why Ricky wore it. That's why
Barry
Ken
Bonds
Griffey
wore it in
Jr.
Pittsburgh.
wore it. Yeah, and yeah, Barry in Pittsburgh wore it. Just he touched a lot of different players, and you could just tell his impact in the game. A total, yeah, of 24 All-Star games, which will never be touched. 2 times MVP, Hall of Famer, of course, Rookie of the Year in 51. And I learned today, too, and I forgot about this, that he was on deck when Bobby Thompson hit that home run in 51
The
that
shot
sent the
heard around the
Giants to the
world.
pennant. And they won in 54, so he does have a ring. 12-time a Gold Glover, batting title. 2 times at All-Star Game MVP. Just an amazing resume with 660 home runs, over 3,000 hits. There were so many accolades that were, spewed out tonight. Just so many that I couldn't cover it all. But the Say Hey Kid, he was known in films. He had some songs written about him. Yeah, you mentioned the transition from New York to San Francisco. You needed a star to come to San Francisco with the Dodgers to LA, and he was that star playing at Sills Stadium for a little bit. I loved his swing. It seemed chaotic, but it was really controlled, and his after swing was kind of nice as well. And he played the outfield so well. He galloped so well to his left or right. And then you mentioned the polo grounds and that one catch going behind the back. And I think he was maybe the first player who was so nonchalant to have those basket catches. And he did it all the time. And he drove people wild, according to a few people. And I'm sad though, because a lot of these people that, again, we read about and watched, growing up, trying to get anything on him, whether it's in books or in TV or whatever, or movies or whatever. And we're losing these people little by little. And it's just people I really look up to. And Willie was one of them. I always said if I got to Oracle Park or somewhere in San Francisco, I want to get something Willie Mays, like a ball or a shirt or something like that. For me, I think he's the best Giant of all time. I mean, there is Mel Ott,
Hands
but
down.
yeah, Willie McCovey, Barry Bonds, throw the new ones in there.
Will Clark.
Yeah, but I think Willie just he's better than all of them, I think, and just to have that connection to New York to San Francisco, playing for the Mets, making the World Series. I think 4 times in his career. Maybe he wasn't as good when he was with the Mets in 72 and 73, but he was that leader I think the young kids can look up to at that time with the New York Mets, from what I heard. And then one more thing. I remember, and this is where it kind of hurts hard, when Vin Scully's last game was in San Francisco, Willie joined him in the booth just to say hello and goodbye and whatever. And I always thought that was the coolest thing, that they took a picture and they had video of that. You know how much I love Vin Scully and how much I love
Same.
Willie Mays. So all that gone together, it's bittersweet tonight, hearing that news. It's just been a bittersweet time, and just lucky that we have all this around us to, look up research and watch film on. And yeah, just the horrific timing too, because of that game being played tomorrow down in Alabama where he grew up. He played for the Birmingham Black Barons, and they're playing there tomorrow. The Giants and Cardinals. It kind of reminds me. I want to say when Franco Harris died, it was a couple of days before they were going to celebrate the Immaculate Reception, and the Steelers were going to play the Raiders, and he died like 2 or 3 days before that game, and this was I think in 23, and there was another untimely death like this. I can't remember whom it was in the sports world, but it's amazing though how just life works. And he was 93 years old, and I can only wish to get to that age. But he'll always be remembered as probably the best center fielder ever. I mean, everybody talks about Griffey Jr. and Mike Trout, and then the two he had to play with in New York at the time with Duke Snider and Mickey Mantle, and then you had Willie Mays, and that's when baseball was at its peak with 3 teams in one metropolitan area. It's just ridiculous how blessed I think New York was at that time, and then getting Willie back later on, which is crazy. But yeah, when I think of the Giants, I'll always think of Willie Mays, no matter what, New York or San Francisco, and I will miss him and all he did. One more thing, I forget. One more funny thing I do, and it wasn't a funny time, but just before Game 3 in the '89 World Series, the big earthquake broke out at Candlestick Park, and they're interviewing everybody who felt it in the Giant dugout and whatever. And all I can remember hearing him getting interviewed and saying, "The ground was shaking, man." I'll always remember. It's a horrible moment in, San Francisco history, but it's like that's the one thing from everybody grabbing their families, leaving the ballpark. I can hear Willie Mays saying that, and he's like, everybody's just surprised with what happened that night. So he's been around with a lot of history. So thank you, Say.
Yeah, like you said though, James, it's been difficult for sports fans to grasp the losses of Bill Walton, Jerry West. Now we get kicked in the nuts again with the loss of Willie Mays earlier on Tuesday. And I think, James, that you said it so beautifully, though, my man, is that you think of the New York San Francisco Giants. Right away, Willie Mays comes to mind. You have to be a special player. Brandon's in the chat box. We'll get to the comments in a second here, guys, so just kind of hold tight. But I think, though, James, that Brandon said it right, though, when we talked about, or I made the caption about Jerry West passing, but it was Brandon's statement in one of our coast-to-coast host chats. You can be the face of the franchise. You can be the face of your sport, but only a select person can be the logo of the league. Comparing, like apples to oranges, it takes a special person to have their name on the street where the team plays their home games. Tony Gwynn, Trevor Hoffman in San Diego, for example. But Oracle Park is at 24 Willie Mays Plaza.
Mm-hmm.
That just tells you right there how special of a guy and player this guy, Willie Mays was. But I think, though, James, that the thing I love the most about Willie, because people talk about the catch he made, and you were talking about, how he always would catch it like a football receiver, kind of, in the breadbasket. But Willie always talked about that catch when he'd be asked about it, and he said, I didn't care about the catch. There was a guy on first base tagging up. I had to get the ball back into the infield to get that guy at second base or hold him at bay. Like, the catch is one thing, but I'm more worried about that runner on first base moving up on my pitcher to scoring position. So forget the catch I made. Look at how quickly I got the ball back into the infield. I loved how he always kind of, in a way, put that thought in whoever was asking him about the catch's mind. Like, the catch is cool, but is it really cool, though, if that guy tags up and moves up 90 feet to maybe get into scoring position or they score on that play? So I always love that Willie said that. But also, more importantly, I love, though, about how he bridged the gap between the Giants organization being in New York. There was some talk that they were going to go to Minnesota. But Walter O'Malley said, don't go there. Go to San Francisco. Let's keep our rivalry going. And let's go to California. And then, of course, bridging the gap between New York and also San Francisco. But again, folks, just very difficult day for Major League Baseball across the board, losing an icon of the game. And yes, I'll say it again, a true giant of the game in Willie Mays, who again passed away earlier on Tuesday at the age of 93 via a very somewhat heartbreaking statement released by his son Mike and by the San Francisco Giants organization. And it's just been kind of resonating today across the game. Plenty of thoughts here from Brandon Herrera. Quick question he has, though, James. How do you believe Willie's game would transfer to the current day age of baseball? I don't know about offense, but defense, man, I'd have him in center field every chance I could get.
Yeah, because I know he can go up and get it. I know he can dive and get it. He can go back and get it. So I'm fine with that. Maybe he would be a free swinger to the point where you'd have to work on him being a average hitter. But I can't remember how many times he hit over 300, but there was always milestones where he used his speed, where either he hit 300 and he had 20 triples or 30 doubles in 1 year or something great like that. Historically hit, 30 home runs plus for so many years as well. So I think he would have been fine in this time of MLB. Maybe, like you mentioned with the transfer and the throws and all that, maybe that would have been tweaked a little bit, but enough to where he would still get the job done. One guy I would have loved to see now, and it's almost kind of similar to me, would be Roberto Clemente and
Agreed.
how he threw from right field. And it kind of reminded me like Vladdy Guerrero Sr. So imagine just having someone like that. And I think you have Willie Mays, who also could steal so many bases, which we've seen go up a little bit in the major leagues now. But back then they did it all the damn time, and I loved it. It would have been a dream having someone like him. I know they always compare, one center fielder looking like, an all-time great, and they compare him to all the guys we mentioned. But I don't think anybody was like Willie though at that time.
I definitely agree, but I think that Brandon, his game would translate to the game nowadays, but
Yeah.
it might be, against whatever the sabermetrics say or what the analytics say. Brandon also has a cool tidbit that our good man Tim Hendricks has a signed photo of Mickey Mantle, Harmon Killebrew, and
Wow.
Willie Mays all signed. That's a keeper right there for sure. To Mr. Hendricks saying hello to Christy Wilson, and she agrees by saying rest in peace to Willie Mays. Again, very rough day for Major League Baseball with Willie Mays passing away earlier on Tuesday. With that, James, to the regular topics here in baseball, but of course, James, a very great weekend of action. Marred, though, James, by the dreaded injury bug, notably biting the LA Dodgers and also, I believe, the Astros over the weekend. Mookie Betts fractured hand, out for about 8 weeks. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, more importantly, rotator cuff strain. He's going to be out for a little bit for the Dodgers. And other players, James, and I believe Justin Verlander was also put on the IL by the Astros earlier on Monday or Tuesday. James, it's more just perplexing about the wave of injuries. And I think even on Tuesday, Aaron Judge was hit by a pitch on his hand today by the Baltimore Orioles in their first game of their series in the Bronx. So, James, where is your concern level right now for kind of the staggering rise of injuries over the last 3 or 4 days of baseball?
And a reminder too, Anthony Rizzo also had an injury. I forget what it was,
Yes, he's also out for 8 weeks.
Yeah. So there's just certain things that, maybe a pitch gets away, like we saw with Judge, like we saw with Mookie Betts. Like those things are freak accidents, right? Like those things happen. And then you have injuries that are just, the bones, the muscles, where you have issues like that. The ones that I'm worried about, and it's been an issue for the last 3 or 4 years, but especially this season coming in, is all the elbow injuries and all the Tommy John surgeries needed for pitchers. That is an alarming rate of pitchers being out. and then you bring up, guys that aren't ready, but they're just throwing up their stuff that they know how to throw. They're not trying to change stuff because they're just being thrusted in. I heard Mark Gubazal talking about that during the Angel game, where there were so many different, pitcher injuries. You mentioned Justin Verlander again. And this time it's only 15-day IL, but it could lead to more and maybe a retirement. I still think that way with Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom, where you don't know if you'll ever see those three guys ever healthy again at the rate that they were, just because their elbows are laying them down, their bodies are laying them down because of the use of them. And Yamamoto, I saw, was a right rotator cuff strain. Strains do happen. I think if you're a team, you're just fortunate that it's not an elbow injury and that it's not a long-term injury. But that's just one thing. And even the Angels got hit today with something, with a abdominal issue for Jose Soriano, one of their best, one of two best starters for the Angels. He's dealing with an infection of that. And he's like, him and Anderson are the only two I want to watch. So it affects our teams when you think about it. With
Big
your
time.
Padres, Musgrove, you don't know what the deal is right now with him. Darvish is still ways away, I'm guessing.
I believe I heard rehab assignment in Fort Wayne is coming like tomorrow on Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday, okay, I just saw that. So he has a groin issue, and just lucky it's not, elbow issue like Musgrove. Even though it says a 15-day IL, it could be something more, and he's had a history of injuries with the Padres.
They're saying a bone spur.
That's what it was, and it's just, you understand if it's a hamstring or a strain or something, but even though I think the weekend was the most attended weekend by fans since 2008, I want to say.
Yes.
But you still had the lingering issues with injuries, and that's the time when, if you're not the Angels, and if you're everybody else, you have backups ready to go in AAA. That's the time I think. I don't know if GMs could do this, but hopefully you have people ready to go in all positions. You know what I mean? Like, who can take over for a starter if they get hurt, or a closer, or whatever the positions are in baseball. You hope that you have someone ready in AAA that could come up and could use the experience. I don't know that to be a thing with the Angels. They have the worst farm system, but it's just a thing, man. If I was a GM, I'd be looking at depth more than star power, just because I don't know if I could trust anybody's body right now, and the injuries that can happen, whether it's freak, whether it's,
Wear and tear.
wear and tear, whether it's just, I don't know, prevent it. But yeah, it's a good thing if you have a lot of depth. If not, you're just stuck in the middle, and you're just hoping for your stars to come back. And I know Michael Harris, I think, was out for the Braves for, I think, 10-day IL, and they've already had so many damn injuries, and they're trying to get back up. The Diamondbacks have a lot of pitcher injuries already with Rodriguez, but you also throw in Kyle Nelson and Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen, the reliever Miguel Castro. They have a real good chance to make some noise with their schedule, but they're missing some of their horses, and that's what's killing the Diamondbacks right now, among other teams.
Yeah, I agree with Christy. She says, as a baseball fan, I'd be very concerned, but she also says number of pitchers getting Tommy John is also very concerning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, James, it's not the fact of the injuries; it's the fact it's the players who are getting the injuries. Betts, Yamamoto, Michael Harris, as you mentioned, who's like kind of been helping the Braves stay afloat with their injuries. Strider down earlier in the season, Acuna Jr. blowing out his ACL earlier in the season as well. Anthony Rizzo on a very good Yankee ball club right now who keeps finding ways to win games. And then Justin Verlander, who I think you kind of, James, I think hit the nail on the head, though, that one more injury could spell retirement for him and even for Scherzer or Jacob deGrom, because you said, though, the usage of them over the course of their careers, though. But definitely concerning. Now, again, I think, though, that James is right that it's more about the fatigue factor, wear and tear of the season and stuff of that nature. But I definitely, though, James, get more concerned about pitchers getting injured because just, I believe, as I have said a couple times on this network, on Press Row, our show, or on Sports Minute, though, is that though I know that I read a story today that part of the reason why more people are coming out to games now is because of that clock.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, though, part of me is still kind of not fully on board because of all of these injuries that I think is being prolonged and plagued by that clock.
I look at what the Orioles have started to miss. You look at John Means, who's out 60-day IL.
Again.
And then they already had Felix Bautista out, and that's been since last year. Bradish, Kremer, and Wells. They're all on the 15-day ILs. And that's when you think about, oh, they probably have to go out and trade for someone, but hope that they don't have an issue. I can remember Scherzer with the Dodgers in 2021 had the dead arm, and he wasn't able to go when they needed him at the highest point. But yeah, it starts from, what was it, 21, when they noticed a rash of, surgeries needed. I think it all goes back to, and I talked about this on other shows, so I'm trying to remember it all, where it starts from not little league, but I would say like middle school, high school, where I think
ball.
That high too, school. Where you're taught not to throw curveballs, you're taught to just throw sliders and changeups and fastballs, but nothing to hurt the growth of your arm. And I think that's kind of been thrown out the door because of exposure. Like, hey, look at my son, or look at the kid on my team who could throw this. Look at the break on the curveball. I don't care if he's only 10. He's going to get in the majors. That's where I think it's like AAU in basketball. That's where you mentioned travel ball. You mentioned the baseball academies, high schools like that. That's where you have the problem and the start of the problems with all these arm injuries, and just lingers into prolonged use to the point where you're killing these arms at a young age. And then you have injuries like this, and it's just an alarming rate. The percentages throughout the roof of how many people needed a Tommy John or elbow surgery of some sort. Even Shohei Ohtani, the reason he's not pitching, he hurt his elbow again. And, there's no guarantee he's going to come back, when he pitches in 2025, how well he'll do and how long he'll hold up through his whole long contract just being a pitcher. Again, I think maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, he's going to probably have to pick one or the other. Are you going to be a pitcher? Or are you going to be a designated hitter? But you can't do both after a while. Because how many Tommy Johns are you going to have? How many surgeries are you going to have? So that's as we're talking about the Dodgers, that's just something to look at, where it's like, hey, that's a long-ass contract, and, he's got to play those years, but you've been promised a two-way athlete, but the body can only do that for so long. I know there were some kids in the college draft last year who did that in college, but you never see it go into the MLB, and it's always a greater risk of injury. But that's where I hope major league teams, you look at a weekend or a week that's been with all the big name injuries, where you just hope you have, guys ready to go, next man up mentality.
Yeah, I think, James, and probably because I've been working I work a lot of Little League baseball over the summer, and I've been there all week, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday tomorrow. Is I do love that Little League, though, has gone the route of they have set pitch counts where kids can only throw X amount of pitches before they must take mandatory rest. I think if you throw 0 to X amount of pitches, you can come back the next day. If you exceed one threshold, it's 1 day rest, 2 days, 3 days. But I think if you go 85, which is the max for Little League, you have to sit out and you have to rest for 5 full days, which I think is a great starting point, though, as you were saying, for these kids to rest and let their arm, heal and rest, basically. But James, you're so right, though, about how it's turned into a circus, where 10-year-old kids trying to get, like parents, like forcing 10-year-old kids to go out here, curveballs and changeups and splitters and sweepers, all for the fact of something, with maybe a major league scout, 15, 20 years later, like just the mentality, though, about youth ball, travel ball, it's way out the window right now. And it's very sad, though, because it's not about, James, it's not about, having fun and playing and being with your friends.
Mhm.
It's turned now into literal competition about my kid has to be scouted at 10 years old.
The alarming thing, and I don't know if it's all true or not, and I don't want to get you in trouble or anything like that, but I noticed the travel ball things. I've seen reels on Instagram or wherever where you have to pay to watch the game, to
Yeah, that
watch
has
your
become a thing
son.
now. Yeah.
Like, there's no more shame with all these leagues. Like, you pay for parking, you pay to watch your kid play. That's just ridiculous to me. That's changed the whole landscape where it is AAU basketball. How much of a disaster that is.
Yeah.
Um, there was one more thing I was going to say. Oh yeah, so I noticed this. I think it was last week. One of those college baseball games,
Mm-hmm.
and this one pitcher, I think threw, I'll say 130 something pitches, and they finally took him out. And I thought we were done with that. I didn't know that was a thing still, even in college baseball. But I guess that's still a thing. And then you
Yep.
had the opposite of that today, because I think I saw Florida State was playing, goodness,
UNC.
North Carolina. Thank you, North Carolina. And Florida State had a guy just go like maybe one or two batters and took him out. I'm thinking I think it was in the third inning before I had to go back, but I was like, man, I haven't seen that in so long since the
Three batter
three.
minimum.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in so long. So it's just funny how the opposite of what I saw last week and today. But man, yeah, just I always okay. I always think like society, they just need to do over with everything. I think the way that baseball is coached and managed, I mean, analytics was supposed to make it where everybody's supposed to be robots, right? And now either people overdo it before you get to that level of analytics. And then the body isn't used to, certain rest days or not as many pitch counts or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. That can also mess with an arm that's used to be working a lot, and then if it's not working as much, it's gonna get hurt. That's all I could think about when I see these things.
Christy Wilson said about Otani, he's probably better off being a DH more than
Yeah,
him doing two-way. And also, James, I can tell you, man, a lot of these college coaches, they don't care about the kid's health. Like, if he's the Friday guy, he will throw 130, 40 pitches because he has a whole week to recoup. And sadly, a lot of the college coaches, and even sadly, James, a lot of travel ball coaches and youth ball coaches, not so much little league coaches, they value the W on the score sheet more than they value the health and safety of their pitchers and their players,
it's just,
which is kind of despicable.
yeah, it's money involved and jobs involved, but you're not thinking of the laborers. It's almost like real life and real society in a way.
But again, folks, a very rough weekend for baseball despite a great box office. Over 1 million fans, though, but sadly, a lot of big name guys going down with injuries over the course of the weekend. James, one more baseball story today before we get to one kind of off the wall baseball topic. Uh, that is the official improvement by Major League Baseball to expand the automated balls and strikes, aka robo umpire, coming soon to Triple A baseball as early, per reports gathered, as the second half of the minor league season in Triple A baseball across the PCL and the other form of Triple A baseball out on the Midwest and East Coast. James, I feel like it's only matter of time, and sadly, I just kind of think though, James, right now with how umpiring has gone over the past several, days, weeks, months, you name it. It's only a matter of time, though, James, before we do in fact have this system. Now, kind of in a quick nutshell, there will still be, if in fact this system does come to Major League Baseball, from what I've seen from video, there will still be a home plate umpire behind home plate. He is mainly only there for plays at the plate and to do this, to tap the top of his head, to ask the robo ump in the box to challenge if it was a ball and strike, almost like, James, you're questioning or challenging in or out playing tennis, where you can challenge to have their robo system say, hey, was the ball in or out on the return serve from the other competitor. So, James, now we're entering AAA baseball now with this ABS or automated ball strike system. James, how do you feel about this system now going to AAA and being one step closer now to Major League reality?
Yeah, I see it. It was in the Florida State League as well, and the width of the zone was more than AAA. AAA is 17 inches. Florida State League is 20 inches. Uh, I'm hesitant about it because you still want that human element of it, but you also don't want those atrocious calls like we saw. I think it was the reason Manny Machado got heated and ejected. Uh, but even as Angel Hernandez is gone, you still have those old umpires who, like C.D. Buckner, had a bad game.
Woo!
I think it was, I can't remember what game it was, but it was all over, and then they showed, like the 25 he missed, and it wasn't Eric Gray bad, but it was really, really bad.
Bad.
Yeah, it's to the point where you're kind of saying, okay, anybody over the age of, 60, 65, you're kind of wanting them to be out the door, and you bring up the new umpires. But I do like where, you will have a challenge system for it. It'll make it more intriguing. It will make every pitch more intriguing and important. My only question I'm thinking about it is that, okay, how many times can a team use that to a batter can challenge a pitch or a pitch can challenge it? I've seen it done, I think, in Double A, I want to say.
Sounds about right.
But I'm trying to think of how many times can you use it, because the first thing someone would say is like, oh, well, we're going to be here all day. You're talking about pace of play. Well, are we going to have a challenge over the first pitch of at bat? I'm interested to see
first pitch of the game.
that would be just bad, and once in a while is fine, but are you going to have one like once an inning? That's what I'm wondering. What the system is going to be with the challenge system. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but I do agree with like the intrigue. But I also do think that we're starting to get into a very gray area of like, we don't want any human interaction whatsoever with the human element being a part of sports. I mean, I think, James, we talked about on this program that there was a proposal, I think, from the Lions or the Colts, where you could challenge like every penalty flag that was thrown in a football game.
Lions.
I just think, though, that you are right, though, again. And I even would agree, though, James, because I've said, though, about on Press Row, I talked about all the pitching injuries way back at the start of the season. For a league so hell-bent on three stupid words, pace of play, yet here we are now embracing this new technology. I do agree, though, about like the intrigue, but I am not for this one bit. You can keep it in the minors and keep guinea pigging it and testing it down there. But I think, though, James, the minute you put this into Major League Baseball, more fans are going to turn away from this. And I know there's a small pocket who don't like the clock. They don't like the bigger bases. They don't like the defensive shift bands. Keep the game like it was back in the 70s. And I get that the league is losing, certain age demographics. But I think if you put this, though, into the sport, though, James, you are really, I think, eradicating and removing, the actual human element of this game. And I think if you were to go as far as even removing base umpires, that also would be something that I think would also rile up this baseball famous. I think, James, you're going to add on to your point.
So I just read it out. It just like was a minute or a second later. So they would have 3 challenges per game at the for a pitch, but it wouldn't affect the other challenges that you get in the game.
For reviewing a play or challenging a play.
Yeah, so this was in the Florida State League, though, but maybe they'll bring that in. So each team gets 3 unsuccessful challenges per game, but successful challenges do not count toward that goal. And then all challenges must be made within 2 seconds of the call. So no more can the batter or pitcher react to it. They have to quickly go to the head and say, do that. That's going to be intriguing because, the first thing is to go crazy when, there's a pitch that you didn't go for because you thought was outside, but it was called a strike. Right away, you're going to react to it, and then you're going to run out of time to challenge it. So that's going to be an adjustment. Remember Machado, I remember, was it last year, he was having issues with the pitch clock and not getting set in time, getting ready in the at bat, but eventually he got over it. So that's just another thing the veteran players would have to get used to in that system. But again, it would help the guys in AAA and AA and single A. Well, I should say, no, AA and single A who have gone through this system. It would help those guys. But the AAA guys and the major leaguers, they would have to get adapted to it. So next spring or whatever spring training it would be in, it's going to be a mess at first, like the pitch clock was in 2023 in March and February. And a lot of rules I don't mind, though, that they had in MLB that they changed. Like, I don't mind the bigger bases if they're for safety. I don't mind the ghost runner in regular season. What do you call it? No shifts beyond second. I don't mind that either. It just wasn't a thing. Back in the day, I don't think anybody really shifted unless it was. I saw something the other. Right. But in I forget when it was, but somebody had an extreme shift back in the 50s or 60s. And it was for this one left-handed batter where they literally put, I think it was 6 or 7 guys on the right side. And they just left the left fielder and the third baseman in between second and third. But I can't remember who the lefty was. It might have been Ted Williams, whomever the left-handed batter was. But that was the earliest time I can remember shift being used. And it was that extreme. They just were not going to let a hit go in. So, yeah, I'll be intrigued to see how AAA, has this work out for them, and then hopefully I can catch some games and just see how the flow is to this. Because, again, I don't think it's the end of, like you said, we have to have the base umpires. We have to have the safer out. We can't have everybody waiting for a red light or a green light to determine safe or out, because then you'll have, mishaps on the base paths. So I think that would be a horrible thing if we ever got to that point.
Yeah, I think, James, that now it becomes more of a time issue because, okay, we already have the clock already in place for the batter and the pitcher. They have it all around the ballpark behind home plate and stuff like that. But now one wonders about the clock now to challenge. Like, does the umpire have a watch or like a buzzer that goes off when the time, when that time expires for them to actually, challenge the call and stuff like that? One thing I would say, James, I would like to see, the SEC did this in their baseball tournament. They adopted the softball base at first base to avoid the collisions between first baseman and batter running down the baseline, where they literally have, the base that they have now, but they had another base next to it for the runner to use only for safety reasons, and it went off very well.
Okay, that I would like that just because sometimes you have those horrible collisions at first. So yeah, that'd be fine. I wouldn't mind that.
So again, folks, once more, the automated balls and strikes, the robo-ump, AAA baseball sometime very soon is early, per reports gathered by the front office of both AAA and the Major League Baseball ranks. Could be coming in the second half of the season in the minor leagues. With that, James, the Dodgers tried again. They did a take two in their terms of a City Connect jersey on Monday. I think it may have been worse than probably the first one. But that, though, James, got the gears grinding between you and me before the show. James, give me your best and your favorite and least favorite City Connects of the 28 of 30 clubs who've unveiled theirs in 2024 or across the past 3 seasons of Major League Baseball.
First I was thinking about the Dodger ones, and they try to explain what it is and all that. The LA is supposed to be, a flight taking off, and then the script at the Coliseum. The problem I do have with it, you see Freddie Freeman, it's literally 05, not number 5. So,
Benito
Gavin,
Santiago wants his number back.
you're gonna have, who's like a single number. Gavin Lux is what, number 9? So you're gonna have 09 on the front and back. I don't like that at all. Like, that's just stupid. The hat's fine. You can't see from far away, but if you look really close, it looks like a confetti cake on the uniform.
Hey, you said it, not me. You said it.
That's my favorite cake too, or favorite icing. And now it's related with the Dodgers.
And now you know what to get James Gonzales for his birthday, folks. Confetti cake.
But not that jersey, ever. The hat looks great, but yeah, the jersey, it's just, they should just stay with what they had. But I love the suggestion you had where it's Los Dodgers instead of
Los
Dodgers.
Yes.
Okay, so the best City Connect that I've seen since 21, it has to be the Spanish word for the Arizona Diamondbacks. The color, I truly like the desert sand, the hat matching the jersey, the red letters. I really, really enjoyed that uniform. It's going away, though, after this season, and it's just one of those uniforms I really, really enjoyed. The one that I really hated, I didn't like Boston's, but I understood it. I guess the other one, I don't want to say San Diego, but that one really just, I understood it, but it's just too much. But it's almost like, man, I forgot what I said earlier. I don't like the Minnesota ones. It's between like Minnesota, it's between the New York Mets ones, Philadelphia's. I guess I would. So between Philly, the Mets, and Minnesota's, I'd probably have to go with Philly, just because there's no red in them. I understand it's the city flag and all that, but the shirt and the jersey going together, it kind of reminds you of those like 1999, 2000, 2001, the FUBU jerseys that would say 05 on them with the two colors blending in together. It's just a style that you never want to see again. And I know the Falcons did that with their alternate jerseys, and everybody hated those in 2020, where I think it was, I want to say red on top blending into black down to the pants. And that was, it's just the ugliest ones. So yeah, best would be Arizona. The worst would be the Philly uniforms. And then I think anyone who ever did color on color other from the Rockies. I enjoyed those. But Baltimore, black on black. Cincinnati's black on black. I just didn't like them. The Brew Crews, I didn't really like. I get them, but I just don't like how the K is, was it MKE, I think, is on
Yes,
the
that's the city
hat.
airport abbreviation,
I don't like
which also
that.
blends into 414 for the city area code.
Yeah, San Diego's just too much for me. I did like how Atlanta did not go overboard. They just basically put their, 74 or whatever it was, 72 home run or 72-year uniforms, but just put the A on it. Some teams went historic with like the Mariners and Rangers. So I did like that part about it. The Pirates look like the 70s uniforms. Tampa Bay kind of went scare boy with theirs. Cleveland's, I was wondering, because they couldn't use Chief Wahoo in anything, but they used the uniform inspired by those, and I did like those. But the Lou is okay for the Cardinals. Toronto's, it's a good change, I guess, but I would have loved to see something that represents Canada. Minnesota, Great Lakes, I get it. I guess that's why they did it, among other things. But it's good to see the Dodgers fell on their City Connect.
Not once, but twice they failed,
Yeah.
for goodness sakes. Our good man Jason Barber says he personally doesn't like the Padres City Connects, but he does love the Rockies. I mean, the Padres have grown on me, and I get what they tried to do. I know people, have their thoughts, but I get what they're trying to do, or what they tried to do, I should say. I can report that has become a very hot commodity amongst fans here in town. With jersey sales, the hoodie sales, hat sales. I have one of the hats actually in my collection. The Padres are also doing more City Connect giveaways this year. They have a hooded sweatshirt giveaway in early September versus Detroit. Coming up, they're also doing a City Connect floppy hat for Fernando Tatis Jr. in late August as well. But unless you've actually been to San Diego, the colors won't make sense, but it's supposed to represent, the green room, as we call it, when you're surfing in a wave and you get the crest of the green and then the pink coming from the sun going down, the colors of Old Town, which is literally down the hill from where I live. You see a lot of those colors on the Mexican woven dresses that the flamenco dancers wear when they are doing their traditional dances. They have a lot of pink and seafoam green and gold in their colors. So I get what the Padres did with those colors. Jason took mine, though. I like the Rockies. I love the license plate inspired look. I love it with or without the green pants, but I love, though, the license plate look. They have a little patch that also marks that they're a mile above sea level. So I'll go with the Rockies. My least favorite, though, I go with the Mets. Great idea, poor execution. I like that they did like the concrete jungle look, and they added the purple in for the subway line, but it should have said Queens, because you're not in New York City, for goodness sakes.
Ooh, that would have been great.
I think it would have been better if it said Queens and not NYC, because you're not actually in the city. You're in Queens. You're in a borough, but you're not Manhattan.
The thing too about the Tiger ones, they look like the ones that the Pistons had in like 2018 and 19.
Fairly recently.
Boston had the first ones, and that's when I knew we were in trouble. When they looked just like the UCLA Bruins, and I know it's the city flag colors, but
it's also for the Boston Marathon.
Oh, that too. But I think, earlier this year, I believe the Angels were in Boston.
And the Red Sox wore theirs.
All 3 games of the weekend. And
it was Patriots weekend, yeah.
I just got sick of those, though. When I think of the Red Sox, I think literally red and navy blue. and a little touch of green. Green would have been fun. I would have loved green, like the Fenway, the monster green. I think if they were incorporating that with the red, I think that would have been better than the city and or Boston
Honestly, what they
Marathon.
should have done too, they should have asked Citgo Gas for permission to use the Citgo ad on one of if they did a Green Monster inspired. And also, I know that the loophole we had was we couldn't pick our hometown team, but as a employee of the Los Angeles Angels, I have to do say about their City Connects outside the box 60s era SoCal beach culture. And me being colorblind, I thought it was like a regular white. You see that jersey up close, though, it is sand. It
Sand.
is beige. It is very
Yeah,
beige.
I
So
love them.
I did like those.
I love them. I like the script about them. The only
Love
thing
the hat.
that too, it makes you think of a female
In-N-Out
employee
Burger.
at In-N-Out Burger. The railroad seal right there, the logo. I hate that it says Los Angeles Angels,
It's the only
but
one that does.
I do like the surfing thing about it. The lifeguard tower number. So I did like the Angel ones.
And also, by the way, nice to see them tap back to navy blue for the first time in quite a while too, and not just red with the navy blue number.
Yeah, that was a good touch to it because when you think of the Angels, they have so much red already. So that was a good touch to it. I always wonder what they were going to use. If they were going to use like, I know I wanted them to do something orange, but I knew because Artie wants Los Angeles, they were not going to do anything Orange County. But it would have been the right thing to incorporate like maybe an orange, literally on the patch or a patch or somewhere. That would have been also cool.
Yeah, that other team who plays across the freeway at the former Arrowhead Pond, they're cooking up something pretty nice that I think you'll enjoy in about 9 or 10 days.
I don't like orange though, Callan.
Christy Wilson, surfs up, dude. Yeah, I mean, 60s era surf culture. And I think, though, like James said, though, I think it's the only safe thing the Angels could have done because of their geographical location in name. With that, James, we'll segue to the NBA finally after an hour of some good baseball talk to open up the show. James, we open up with baseball. We'll go now to the NBA. Of course, the NBA Finals wrapped up on Monday. Literally 16 years, I believe, to the day, the Boston Celtics are 18-time NBA champions after throttling the Dallas Mavericks in Boston. 106-88 for the franchise's 18th title in franchise history, and their first title since Callan McClurg was in 8th grade in 2008 over the LA Lakers that year. But again, James, we talked about the finals, man, when we talked about our preview of it. Back on June 4th, though, you had taken Dallas. I went with Boston.
Oh, no.
I think we both agreed, though, that this was, in fact, if there was ever a year for the Celtics to finally do it, it was this year. The Celtics won 80 out of 101 played games this season, and I think that they broke all kinds of records and stuff like that. But I think, though, I know that Jaylen Brown James won Finals MVP. The real MVP, in my opinion, man, is Brad Stevens, who said, look, I'll vacate the head coaching job and take over as the GM. And the maneuvering this guy had done since leaving the bench for the owner's box and the executive chair, stunning. Trading away Marcus Smart, getting guys like Derek White, getting guys like Kristaps Porzingis, bringing in a lot of other unproven, lesser known players. And this ball club, and again, James, I know that you and I said it, though, led by that duo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who we had talked about on June 4th. These guys can't play together. Trade them, build better for the future. But they chose not to do that. And I think Brad Stevens looks like an absolute genius. And now he's been rewarded with a title. And more importantly, I think, James, Big Al finally gets one after 17 years in the NBA. So, James, your overall reaction to the Celtics, once again, Boston back on top of the NBA mountain in 2024.
Yeah, I feel silly drinking the blue Kool-Aid of the Mavericks when I made my picks. That was stupid of me. But, I didn't really know how much Boston, knowing that they didn't really face much, I don't know how they would face Dallas. And then Kyrie didn't really show up. So thanks, Kyrie.
Luca beat
Um,
up, banged up, chewed up, and spit out and fouling out, and always complaining to the referees too.
yeah, Luca though had a tremendous series.
Big time.
Scoring over 30 points almost every game, making just difficult shots. I think he apologized to his teammates, I think, after the third game about all the complaining and whatever the case was. Um, but they obviously have some bench pieces they need to correct in Dallas. They had a great second half of the season. I don't want to say full season because
Definitely second half though.
it wasn't until that second half of the season and trade deadline when they made the two moves to get Gafford, to get PJ Washington Jr.
Washington.
When they got those guys, they actually had everybody in the right spot to come off the bench to produce. You had the two heads doing their thing, but you also knew you had guys you could kick it out to. So that was great. To the champs, I yeah, you were talking about Al Horford. I mean, I'll start with Al Horford. It's amazing how all those years ago, 16 years it was in '08, how that was his rookie year, I want to say. And the Hawks, which he was on that year, took the Celtics to 7 games. I think it was in the conference finals. And they lost in Boston. And the Celtics went on to beat the Lakers in 6 that year. It's funny how that comes full circle for Al Horford, where they win the championship all these years ago after getting eliminated by Boston. Brad Stevens, you mentioned, to bring Al Horford back, to make that tough trade of the fan favorite of Marcus Smart, to trade Brogdon away. I don't think a lot of fans like that, but to get Drew Holiday, to make it be known that he's a great two-way player. He's tremendous defensively. He's amazing. How in the first game he was able to shut down whoever he was guarding. It was great. There's other moves too, like some bench moves that he made. And also to get Porzingis. I know that was highly scrutinized. And you thought to yourself, man, well, he's not even going to play the whole damn season. He is injury prone, and we did see that. And it was commendable that he was able to play how much he did yesterday. I was fearing the worst, where he was going to have a really, really bad injury, locked on to the one he already had, or made that one worse. But at least he wanted to come out and compete. And he definitely gave him a little spark. It wasn't so much Willis Reed, but it was a little spark that he gave him. So you look at the starting five, Holiday, Horford, Derek White. You talk about a guy who came from the G League, then lucked on with the Spurs, and you really thought, oh, well, he's a good role player, but I've never really seen him break out like he did in this postseason. He had a tremendous, first 6-7 games where he scored over, I think, 25 points. And it was just the weirdest thing, too, because you didn't really see that from him. But he's also a great two-way player, and that was amazing to see. Then you look at the two stalwarts of the Celtics. You look at Jason Tatum finally getting vindicated with the championship and the great pictures you saw with the family, with his little son there. That was great among the confetti. Jaylen Brown, it felt like he got vindicated, though, in the East Conference Finals, because they gave him the
Hold
MVP.
that trophy up with your left hand, son.
They gave him that, and then they gave him, all the props for that, as if to say, okay, you're going to get this, but Tatum's going to get the NBA Finals MVP. So this was yours. That's going to be his, because he's been here longest, or he's been the face of it. So it was kind of weird. The intrigue of when I got home for that, of the ceremony, was like, who the hell's going to win MVP? And when it was Jaylen Brown, I think everybody was shocked as hell. And Tatum, of course, saying, "Oh yeah, we don't have egos here. I didn't care who won it. We're a team." He was kind of clapping or whatever, and he looked back like, "Oh, okay, that's something." Because I really thought Tatum was going to get it. Plus, he had 31 in the clincher. Brown only had 21. Um, so I know the fans, they love being Kyrie. It was good seeing Kyrie. He went over to the bench after the final timeout, I guess, and he went to go shake everybody's hand. So it's good to see that. And Luka, hopefully this isn't his only time in the finals. He had a great finals, great postseason too. I was hoping for a little more from the Mavericks. Also, I do want to shout out one more thing: Peyton Pritchard. I couldn't believe it. In in the game yesterday, he made a half court shot or almost half court shot, and then in the game, what was it? Game 2, I think he made a half court shot. So everybody kind of knew when he was put in before half. In game 5, I was listening to it, and by the way, Cedric Maxwell and whoever the play-by-play guy is for Boston, those two are great together for the Celtics. But they were saying, "Hey, put Pritchard in. See if he can make one again from half court to in the half," and he did. And I was so amazing to see. It was only the shot of the game for him, and he made it. But it was good seeing an old Pac-12 guy gain a ring there along with Jaylen Brown. Celtics are champions again. They're 18-17 now, so that's got to feel good if you're a Celtic fan. I guess for the offseason, Dallas does have a chance to bring another scorer in. I wonder if they'll, maybe trade away Tim Hardaway Jr. or Dwight Powell. He didn't really make a presence in the games this year. Neither did. So I wonder if they'll get some cap room and they'll make a big splash so they can get through the West again. And for Boston, I just feel like they're going to continue to be the favorites. There's all this talk about Paul George maybe going to the Sixers. They would have to move some things around. I think everybody's sick of Tobias Harris in Philadelphia. So I know teams are going to try to build up to beat Boston, but it's a difficult task to repeat. But I think they could do it again. Even if the Pacers are able to sign back Pascal Siakam, I think the Celtics are favored for next year too.
I think you have to, I think the champs become the favorites, and for the Celtics again, folks, the Boston Celtics win the NBA title on Monday, their 18th title in franchise history, breaking that tie with the rival Lakers after the Lakers won their 17th in 2020, and the Lakers winning it, or the Celtics winning it, I should say, Boston winning it on Monday for their 18th in their franchise history. And again, James, I recall saying here 2 weeks ago that it felt like Boston's time, because I think of what we had said, though, about, the court they had. They built something great. They kind of tore it down a bit by trading away some guys that were fan favorites, though. But they got guys, though, who you probably didn't hear a lot about, or they were journeyman, veterans who came in and just kind of, played their role. But also, how about Joe Mazzulla, James? I think we talked about this a little bit, though, too, on Tuesday, on 2 weeks ago. Thrown into, a very chaotic situation with the former coach, Ime Udoka, his, problems away from the team, though. And then Joe's kind of thrust into this, head coaching role pretty frequently. And now all of a sudden, Joe Mazzulla, who's 35, still looked like he was ticked off about his team played. And they just won the championship on Monday. Like, there was a close-up I saw from a buddy of mine in Connecticut that Joe had this very, ticked off, face, like, you just won the NBA title. But you know what, though? It made me think, though, this guy's already locked in for next year. It reminded me so much, James, about Pat Riley when he guaranteed that the Lakers were going to repeat back in the late 80s, how the players hated it, though. But you know what? It got the gears turning, though, for that following season. But props to Boston, again, for the 18th title. Again, I think I feel so great, though, for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown again, proving all the doubters and naysayers about, break those two guys up, though. And I think the raw emotion of Jason Tatum with his son on the floor in the locker room with the confetti, him kind of having his Kobe with Larry O'Brien moment or Michael Jordan with the Larry O'Brien moment. But for the Mavericks, though, James, they came out of nowhere from a rugged, wild Western Conference. Everyone knows about how wild and loony and stacked the Western Conferences. Not of all the teams with all the star power, both LA teams and the defending champions at the time in Denver and even Minnesota this year, it was very much a underdog-driven Western Conference this season. But I think, James, my main thing, though, is that I do like this Kyrie and Luka duo in Dallas. I agree about maybe, restructuring the roster a bit. James, though, I would probably have to say, though, I am, though, a little concerned, though, about Luka's on-court attitude when it boils down to him arguing with the refs. But also, though, James, I hate to say it, though, man, I'm a little worried, though, too, about his endurance and conditioning.
Okay, it's great that you mentioned that. And I noticed this, I think, even in the Clippers series in the first round, where he would take some quarters off or half of quarters off.
It sure felt that way in some games, and not even James in the postseason. I felt that way too in the regular season, especially thinking back to early in the year. Luka had a Phoenix Suns fan who was dogging him about his weight and his conditioning. Had that fan thrown out of the game in Dallas earlier in the season.
That's right.
So that is a bit of a red flag for me, though.
Yeah, I mean, most of that could come with weight loss or stamina gain, something I need. I could definitely see him changing that around if someone's bold enough to say that to him and lecture him, maybe to say, hey, you can be this. You could do this if you were like this. So that would be a thing. But I did notice that where he would take defensive, assignments off. I think the first sign of, things were going to go wrong for Dallas was that first game where Jaylen Brown, guarded him 94 feet, right? Once Luka got the ball and he brought it up, Jaylen Brown just took that away from him and he went in for the slam dunk.
With ease.
Yeah.
With ease.
And Jaylen, mentioned something to him or something. And that's when I think, oh, yeah, okay, so they don't play people like that in Europe. I'm not saying anything like that, but he would have to get used to the stamina of others to be here. He's been in the league long enough, though, but it just seemed like that. He would be slower toward rotations on defense. He would let Brown go by for a slam or whomever else that he was guarding. It just seemed like he's more offensive than defensive. Like, he'll never be that two-way player that, everybody wants him to be or what he needs to be.
You're telling me he won't make all defensive NBA team is what you're telling me.
I don't think so. He could be first team and still be offensive. We saw that this year in the last 3 years where he's just here to score 30-something and be dramatic late. But he'll take possessions off, and you don't want to put him on the opponent's best offensive player.
Other than that, I love Dallas's makeup. I think Jason Kidd, has really redeemed himself as a head coach, though, during his tenure now with Dallas. After his snafus in Brooklyn and in Milwaukee, but now he certainly looks like a rejuvenated and I think a guy who has deserved this this chance now to lead his former ball club for a long time with the Dallas Mavericks, but again the Celtics win their 18th NBA title over the Mavericks in a 5-game gentleman's sweep on Monday from TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. With that, James, from the NBA Finals to the Stanley Cup Finals, and all of a sudden, James, we have a series. After falling behind 3-0, the Edmonton Oilers have exploded on the offensive side of the puck, having scored 13 goals in 2 games after an 8-1 drubbing in Game 4 in Edmonton and a Game 5 victory earlier on Tuesday. And a clinching scenario for Florida, a 5-3 victory. And all of a sudden, James, This just feels like the Undertaker in pro wrestling, sitting up in the casket and coming back from the dead. Now, all of a sudden, James, a 3-2 Florida lead. And now, though, I think, though, James, a little concerning here. If you're
Mm-hmm.
Florida, 4 goals combined, I believe, in the last 2 games. And now the Oilers have gotten their big guys going. And McDavid and Draisaitl, Evan Bouchard, setting a new playoff record for points by a defenseman. And now, all of a sudden, James, I know there's still one more win before we have a potential Game 7. But I don't know, though, James. I still like Edmonton. That's who I picked, and I know that you picked Florida. And, right now you're still looking pretty. But I do think, though, James, that I do have a stat, though, that I recall seeing. In the time since Chris Knobloch took over as Edmonton's head coach, following a 3-game losing streak, the Oilers had an 8-game winning streak and a 16-game winning streak earlier in the regular season. So right now it doesn't quite bode well for Florida. But you know what? They're still up 3-2 heading back to Alberta. But James, pretty deflating though these past 2 games for the Panthers, though, giving up a combined 13 goals in 2 games.
Yeah, those fans were ready to celebrate tonight in Miami or sunrise, and that didn't happen. A sun set on the Panthers tonight. Yeah, the stars for the Oilers, they went out and balled or pucked out or whatever. Connor McDavid had a couple of goals, and Brown had that breakaway one off the turnover. That was pretty cool.
That was a backbreaker.
That was okay, something's wrong. And I don't know. And Corey Perry, I got to mention him, the former Duck. He finally scored a goal this postseason. I think he was he's played the most postseason games of active players. I think it's like 206, I want to say. But Hyman also had a goal. But yeah, that one breakaway goal by Brown, that was something. That
was the backbreaker.
Yeah, you knew that game was kind of in hand. Although Florida came back and made it interesting. Rodriguez made it interesting. Tychuk made it interesting. But yeah, the game before, Game 4, where it's like, oh, you're just giving them. You're just like, it was almost like the Game 4 in the Celtic game.
Yeah, just take this one. I want you to at least get one.
and we'll just go home and win it. I think hockey's different in that way. They had a team go down 0-3 and win a series. The Kings, I think, in 2014.
Yeah, over San Jose.
I think it's just different in hockey. It's not like the NBA where it's like we have enough games. There's more opportunities to score. I know that sounds duh, but yeah, there's more opportunities to score. In hockey, it's different. And for that goaltender who was pulled after giving up
Bobrovsky.
He gave up 5 goals, I want to say, in that Game 4 before he was pulled. Mm-hmm. That can get to you mentally, I think.
Big time.
And plus, you have the crowd on your back too, and then you have that expectation. You have the pressure to end it at your home. But now those players, McDavid, who the 3 leaders and scorers in the postseason, by the way, now they're seeing like, hey, we can score anytime pretty much we want if we have the advantage, or if we have a little crease, like that one goal. I can't remember who did it for the Oilers, but where it went through someone and it went in the goal.
I think it was McDavid who had that goal that was like off the bad angle, and he kind of just like threw it towards the end and it happened to flutter in.
I think that's what it was, but I'm so amazed though, and this is by someone who only watches playoff hockey.
Some hockey's better than no hockey.
How the angles are, how they score. I don't know how the hell they do this. I know they tried deflections off someone a lot of times too. I know Florida was trying to get that late when they were down 1. I do have to mention too, I forgot who it was for Florida. I think it was Tychuk.
Matthew Tkachuk, yeah.
Matthew Tkachuk, or was it Lindell or Reinhart who saved that goal when the empty net happened?
That was Tkachuk. Full-fledged in flight, and just was able to knock it away from crossing the goal line with the net empty.
I would tell a non-hockey fan like myself, I would say that's a reason to watch playoff hockey. Look at someone diving like that, using his stick, somehow getting it off before it crosses that blue line. And then he had to play goalie, and there was no chance he was gonna
Yeah, no
stop.
chance, sadly.
I don't care if it was 1-on-3 or whatever it was, but I forget who scored the last. Was it McDavid who had the last goal as well?
I believe so.
He had the easy shot there,
Empty netter.
and it was 5-3 going back to rowdy Edmonton. I think it's going 7. I think Florida's lost all momentum. Like whatever they came in with, it's gone. Whatever togetherness they had, and remember they were more physical at first. In the first 3 games, they were more physical
Right.
on Edmonton, and it was like the Celtics, right? On yesterday when they made all their 3-pointers, you saw what happened. They had a 20-plus point lead most of the game. With Edmonton now, it's like, okay, you let them score so many times, like you mentioned, 13 goals the last 2 games?
13 goals in 2 games.
Okay, they're going home too, and they're going to try to duplicate what they did in Game 4, and you're allowing this. Florida has to get tougher. They have to get physical. They have to get better and defend better and not have mistakes like that breakaway goal. So I don't know much, but damn, I just know this series is going 7. I hope.
And we have to wait till Friday, I believe, for game 6 in Edmonton. So 3 days, technically 2 days, because of the travel from Florida to Edmonton.
2,500 miles. I didn't know that till today.
Longest Stanley Cup final matchup by mileage, if you folks can believe that. But, James, I do agree, though, that these 2 losses for the Panthers are deflating. Now, I don't know if it's full-blown deflation yet. It's pretty damn close, though, because now you're on the verge of a potential 3-3 tie if the Oilers win Game 6, heading back to Sunrise for Game 7. But certainly now it's like you poke the bear, and now the bear is awake and is ready to maul you, because now all of a sudden McDavid is hot. Draisaitl is going. Zach Hyman is going. Evan Bouchard again set that playoff record for most points by a defenseman with his 26 point of the playoff. But also, more importantly, James, like I mentioned, though, 2 weeks ago, it's about goaltending. And at the time I said, Florida's riding a very hot goalie in Bobrovsky. Stuart Skinner, your boy, because of his name, wasn't as hot entering the Cup final. But now all of a sudden, how the tables have turned right now, where now Bobrovsky has been solved, 13 goals in 2 games, pulled out of Game 4 in Edmonton. Now all of a sudden, Skinner is the hot goalie right now. So certainly, James, you're right, though, about how the momentum can shift so quickly in hockey. But also, again, I'm not quite ready to say that the Oilers have it in the bag, though. They still got to get that next win, though, to go 3-3 back to Sunrise. But I still think that Florida still has the advantage. It may sound stupid, but they have the 3-2 lead heading back, though, to Edmonton. Now, the only question, though, I would have, though, is does Paul Maurice roll the dice and maybe let Bobrovsky sit Game 6 and maybe bring him in like an opener in baseball? Like if, in fact, Edmonton gets kind of going early on Anthony Stolarz, their backup, could it become where it's like a bit of a mental break for Bobrovsky, but maybe after a period, maybe after it becomes 2-0 or a 2-goal deficit, do you put Bobrovsky back in to maybe, pull one out in Game 6 but not go to Game 7? We'll see. But certainly right now, I still think that Florida has the advantage. They're up 3-2 for a reason. But I do believe, though, James, if the Panthers don't play physical, they're not winning Game 6. If they're not out here banging bodies and, forcing Edmonton into taking penalties or, bonehead and making bonehead mistakes, they won't win Game 6. I agree with that 100%.
That is going to be the big question, and we'll see if they can do it. By the way, I loved the ESPN 3-man crew there. I'll say, first of all, with Sean McDonough, he sounded more excited tonight than he did in Game 3 and 4. Games 3 and 4. He kind of sounded, like he didn't want to be there. But tonight, he sounded awesome. And then I have to give a shout-out to PK Subban, Mark Messier, and Steve Levy. They had tremendous color suits on. Supan had the like mint and the blue. Missy had like the all lavender. Levy had the Don Cherry kind of striped blue dress suit
Yes.
going. I've been loving this coverage, and whenever PK talks more about hockey and Messier, I learned so damn much. So I'm grateful for those two.
And honestly, I'm grateful for the whole ESPN crew. I mean, all their
Oh, Kaplan.
broadcasters are just, yeah, all the whole crew that they have though that's been working regular season games and playoff games. I mean, they are just, really great people. I do know Blake Bolden, who is one of the analysts, but she also works for the LA Kings as a scout. Blake is a youth coach here in San Diego. So I see her very frequently at Gulls games. She scouts for the Kings, so her and I will see each other at games. And like Hillary Knight's been an analyst. Megan Duggan was an analyst at one point in time. So I just love the cast and crew that ESPN has brought in to rekindle the relationship. And also, I think, though, James, more importantly, Steve Levy and Mark Messier and PK Subban, they're all filling the big shoes left behind by Barry Melrose in a
That
huge way.
Yeah, Butragas there. Yeah, that was always a big segment on SportsCenter now to watch, just because of Barry Melrose. I mean, he was one guy to listen to. He was awesome. Also, I gotta give a shout out Emily Kaplan. She's been great too, all season long. Whenever I'd be able to watch games, I would watch her do the sideline reports, and she's very great with her questions. Very very good. Keeps the coaches on their toes. I really enjoyed that part about it. I do miss hearing Kenny Albert, but that's of course only on TNT.
Yeah, and again, just a great job by Turner and by ESPN throughout the course of the entire NHL season. With that, James, we'll segue back to the hardwood man on the WNBA side, but more importantly, James, and again, we know that there's been a lot of stuff going on,
Ugh.
mainly on the bad side and on the ugly side. But let's talk about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark for the right reasons, not for the flagrant foul and the media coverage has been blown out of proportion. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, James, have helped the WNBA draw their largest television audience in 23 years. My only gripe, though, with these games between Chicago and Indiana is not for the fouls on Clark, James. All these games have been at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, and I'm not even awake yet usually on the weekend to watch these games, though. But certainly, James, I think we talked about this a little bit. I've kind of, in a way, have skirted the boundary. But that this 2024 rookie class, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, James, are paying dividends to get eyeballs on this league. And that right there proves it.
Yeah, this is the most I've watched in the regular season that I could think of. I mean, I remember on the nightly there was a good couple of years when the Sparks were winning championships. I think 2001 and
Early
2000.
2000s, yeah.
I was watching that nightly just because I would go to a couple of games each year too. I think the first couple of years I was watching pretty good as well. And then after a while, it was kind of hard to find games. And then you mentioned
You'd be
it too.
jumping networks from FSN West to KDOC to, other like, KCal 9, other stations like that, basically.
But the national games were kind of hard to find too. They would move around from like Lifetime, and now it's on Ion. But they have the ESPN slots. I think LA and New York will play on Amazon very soon.
Yeah, Amazon CBS is now also
Yeah,
involved. ABC now has coverage, and of course, NBA TV's been a great partner for them too for a long time as well.
that's where That's where I caught. I think LA playing today. They played someone, and Brink unfortunately got hurt, and yeah, I think they lost as well as Connecticut. But yeah, I kind of wish the game was on the day I could watch them. I had to work on Sunday. I hear they're playing again next Sunday, but 3 hours later. So at I think 1 o'clock here locally. I don't want to put too much hype on the rivalry, because now everybody's comparing them to Magic and Bird, and that's like, I get the comparisons just because of how many years have gone by, when I think of the NBA and the first time they met up in the NBA, the league was already 34 years old. When they first met in 79, 80. Of course, they had their battle in 79 in national championship, and of course they met. I think once in the national championship last year. I think it was in the semifinal. So I don't want to hype them up too much. I think the media does a terrible job. First of all, making it a race issue between these two, but also comparing to something that was really great already. Like they're
Right.
just starting. They're not. They haven't played each other in the playoffs yet, and they won't this year either. Um, so I don't want those comparisons yet, and I just hate again the fouls that happened. It is great though because people. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. Colin, you're gonna hate this, but it's like with society right now. It's a
Agreed.
race. It's a race war everywhere, in all facets of life, right? And it's hit the WNBA, so that's why people are watching because they hate one more than the other because of the majority is someone else. That's why people are watching. You have the haters watching to support Reese. You have the lovers who are watching for Clark, and it's those young ladies who want to be like her, who want to shoot like her, and that's why it's as big as it is, the audience. And I think I saved the highlights. I do want to watch it, and hopefully Sunday I can get away and watch some of it. Um, I can only hope there will be these games like this more in the future. Hopefully there'll be. I don't know if there'll ever be a draft class like this, but I hope there's a continual draft classes like this so we can have, let's say, the next, as I'm thinking with the NBA, right? When there was Magic and Bird, later on there was, Hakeem Olajuwon, there was Clyde Drexler, there was Michael Jordan,
Patrick Ewing.
Dominique Wilkins, and then Patrick Ewing. All these players getting drafted and just accelerating the league from the finals being taped to the NBA finals being live. Hopefully, not only the league, the WNBA can go on that same projected height, but have the same amount of players come through that are young and just continue this. We're taking the torch from Sue Bird and Tarasi and all the ones before, and now you have what the Aces have, what the Liberty have, and just trying to take the torch along and make it even bigger. There's so many groundbreaking stories that have happened already this season, and I'm loving the attendance figures. I'm loving the audiences on TV. I'm just hoping it grows with these two. I'm just hoping it's covered the right way, where we could just get it all about just basketball. But to get back to what you were saying, I think people are watching it just because they're on one side or another, just like in society right now. I
Yeah,
think that's
and
why you
I
have the
and
high numbers.
yeah, and James, I'm fully on board with you on this one because it's the off court coverage that is driving me batty. And I think that you hit every nail on the head. You hit every mole that popped up on the whack-a-mole machine when it boiled down to my thoughts is that I want this about the on-court product. These fouls happen, and I think Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark handle it best way. It's a basketball play. Went for the ball. She got me in the head. Big deal. Flagrant one. But I think, like I said, though, I think last Wednesday about how there was the reports like the next game that the Sky played in DC, Angel Reese's homecoming to the area where she's from Baltimore. This idiotic fan who loves Caitlin Clark shows up to the Sky Team Hotel with a camera and begins to try to, like, in a way, verbally harass and assault Kennedy Carter for her foul on Caitlin Clark and her teammates. And it took like police and the security guard from a team like forever to show up. Like, I want the coverage to be about the game, the final score, how they both did. talk about the foul, but don't, as James said, make it about race relations and make it about, stuff that doesn't involve wins and losses in the standings. But certainly, again, this is already a great start to the year. It is, though, James, like I said, though, very unfortunate about Cameron Brink getting hurt in the Sparks game against Connecticut on Tuesday in Connecticut against a very good, very hot Sun team right now at this rate, who've lost one game all season. But certainly, I think, though, James, that we're going to have this trend, though, in a good way, where more of these games are being viewed, by record-setting audiences. Now, it probably will always involve Indiana. Let's just kind of already say that. But I think, though, that when LA outsells a Laker home game because of Caitlin Clark, and that the Mystics have sold out games because of Clark, and also Angel Reese because she is from the area, being from Baltimore, that more and more teams are seeing, these numbers. And also, James, Front Office Sports had a very intriguing story. The league media rights will quadruple in 2025 at the rate that we're going right now, which also will include the new team up in San Francisco.
And then there's one in Toronto coming, I believe.
2 years from now, 2026.
Yeah, that's only going to make it better. That's only going to propel them even more. I heard about the money loss or whatever, but I think that's just a formality from the present, not what will happen in the future. So when I heard that story, I just, $50 million, okay, that's nothing to the NBA. They can make it up, and hopefully it's done the right way, and it's only going to get bigger and better, I hope. And again, I just hope it starts with the college players coming in and taking over and making the league so much better in all the cities and all the teams that really need the help get it. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the coverage, and it's got me watching highlights every night when I come home, because usually those Indiana games, they're at 4:00, 3:30 or whatever. I'm not home till like 8 or 9. So I always have, YouTube highlights ready to go, or NBA.com, WNBA.com. So I'm always ready to go for that. And I've been watching the Sparks a lot because of Brink, because of their other great scorer. That's been amazing too. I forget her name. It's like Tamik Johnson or something like that. But she's been great too. Whenever Brink doesn't have it, it seems like she goes off. And they have a great point guard who sets up things. Also too, Callan, what I really enjoy about it is that the game seems more fundamental than the NBA game.
Yes.
Like, you have a point guard bringing up the ball, not the main scorer. You have people setting screens that will get a scorer open. You don't have someone going ISO like Jason Tatum. Everybody get the hell out of the way. You have little, boxing out. You have, the fundamentals cut to the basket for a layup. So I'm really enjoying that because it's almost like the college game, right?
Refreshing to see.
Hell yeah, because, Curry's ruined it. James Harden's ruined it, where you have the guys just shooting long threes. And now it's creeped up in the college game too. At least the WNBA players is like, hey, they're selective with their 3-pointers, and it's not like Caitlin Clark range. It's only her doing that. She has the only green light in the WNBA from the logo. Everyone else, it's like acceptable ranges. So that's also a thing I've been enjoying about watching the games.
Yeah, and also, like, the pace of the game, too, is a little bit quicker as well.
I like that, too.
I missed some comments real quick. I'm going to get back to these comments real quick. Sorry about that, folks. Christy Wilson first wrote in saying, congrats to the Celtics. She also says, I believe that Tatum and Brown decided to put their egos aside for the good of the team, and look what happened in 2024. She also says, I'm pretty sure that fans thought that Brad Stevens was crazy for making the moves that he did make. And also, she says, could we be seeing a comeback by Edmonton in the Stanley Cup final? Again, they're now down 3-2 after winning earlier on Tuesday down in Sunrise, Florida. She also loved my reference to Mark Calloway, better known as The Undertaker from WWE. She also says, major props to the NHL and TNT crew who have done an incredible job this entire season. For, I think, their second year covering the league, great job by that entire crew for Turner Sports covering the NHL this season. Christy says that she's also been working. Myself, and cannot watch the early morning games, which I think is a little bit of a knock here, I think, on the Chicago Indiana games. They've been at like 10 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, Pacific time at least. And she also wanted to point out that Twitter is still airing some WNBA games live on the Bird platform. And she also says that Clark and Reese are definitely not Magic and
Thank
Bird in
you.
her opinion. Yeah, certainly not. I think if it was to be of any sort of like WNBA rivalry, Christy, though I know they played together in college, Birdie versus DT could be a pretty good comparison. Or like the 2016-17 era Sparks versus Lynx, and they had a very nice little 2-year run of some great finals that went the full 5 games. So certainly nowhere close to Magic and Bird, but at least it is beginning to, I think, start the conversation of this being the WNBA's great player rivalry of Reese versus Clark in a way. And also, Christy said that this has been a very big talking point. The WNBA itself has been criticized for many years for not turning profits, yet here they are still losing money. But yet, here they are now with charter flights, more national exposure, record-shattering audiences on TV and at arenas, and now expansion for the first time in many years coming up in 25 and 26. She also says that the league is also a definite nice change of pace from the NBA. With that, James, we will now segue, my man, to the closing part of our program, to the off-the-board segment, my friend. We, of course, do this every time we're here on C2C at night to talk about one topic that was not talked about on the program here tonight. So, James, what's your off-the-board topic for this Tuesday night?
It's kind of a worrisome issue that I'm going to have. Since the passing of Jerry West and him being the logo, I'm worried that it's going to be changed in the next couple of years. I hope that's not the case. But who do you think would be the logo if they changed it? Like, what silhouette would be the logo? I don't think it'd be Jordan, because then that would be like the whole league is Jordan. But could it be like Kobe taking his like famous fadeaway jump shot, or LeBron's dunk with one hand, or let's say a Jordan jump shot? I'm just worried about the NBA changing the NBA logo, and I hope they don't. Do you think they will? And if they do ever, who do you think it would be, and what would their silhouette be? And would they change the colors around?
It won't be Jordan. It won't be LeBron. It won't be Kobe. It won't be any of those guys. For me, it'd be Bill Russell, winningest player of all time, player coach, his legacy on the NBA, what he had done for the Celtics, what he had done for the league as an ambassador afterwards, how he was, though, alongside Kareem and Muhammad Ali during the race relations of the 60s. I think of Bill Russell, though, as a trailblazer. And I also think, though, James, that the NBA has been kind of like that. Like I said, though, about how the Dodgers are like a trailblazing organization, about them signing Jackie Robinson, them making, getting the guys from overseas, from Japan, how you brought up about how they started the Dominican Republic leagues down there, in the DR, and how they, have stood, though, along with the Giants, though, for, LGBTQ plus rights, women's rights, black rights and stuff like that. I think of the NBA, who literally takes election day off. There's no games played on election day every year, mainly, of course, every 4 years. And I think, though, of like Bill Russell's legacy, player, coach, but also how him and Jim Brown and all these, big name stars of the 60s, crucified because they were black athletes excelling in their sports. So I would probably say it's not Jordan, it's not Kobe, it's not Magic, it's not LeBron. I would probably go with Bill Russell for my new logo if the league ever changed it. I don't think I'd change the colors. I would keep it red, white, and blue for both, the U.S., but also, again, the teams in Canada. There is those rumblings of a team going to Mexico City, perhaps, for expansion in a couple of years. So maybe you throw a little bit of some Celtic green in there, maybe, if you go that route. But I would probably, James, and that may be a very, surprising answer, but I would put Bill Russell as my logo of the NBA, if in fact they chose to change it. But I'm sure it would probably be more of a modern day player for, the new, age demographics to really, I think, connect with, like a LeBron James or a Kobe Bryant. But if you want to give people a real history lesson about a true icon of basketball, Bill Russell, without a doubt.
Would you have it? It would be like for him grabbing a rebound, like really jumping high. That's all I could think of for a silhouette.
Yeah, I could probably think of like a silhouette of him like going up for a rebound or
Yeah.
like, maybe him making a pass of some type, almost like how Jerry West is literally just dribbling, up the key for a layup as he did back in the day for the Lake Show.
By the way, who is the WNBA? Who's on the silhouette there? Is there?
They've never said, but I believe it to me it looks like Diana Taurasi.
Okay.
I could tell by the bun. I could tell by her going up with the left hand for a layup. I would kind of think to me, it looks like Diana Taurasi. They
And
never actually said it, but it does look like DT, though.
the one thing I noticed for that Champions Cup, they have a different basketball. I noticed
The Commissioner's Cup,
the
yes.
Commissioner's Cup. Thank you. That's what it was called. That threw me off the other day.
They use the oatmeal white and the orange one for regular gameplay, but then the Commissioner's Cup is oatmeal and black.
Yeah. That threw me off like 2 weeks ago.
It's almost like the money ball in the 3-point shootout for the NBA skills contest during All-Star Weekend.
Now it's a what is that? That not Sierra Mist, but it's that other one now that they use for
Starry?
Moneyball. Yeah, that's the Moneyball now. It's weird.
So, James, who would you pick for the NBA logo?
Well, I want to keep it, what was it? I want to keep it Jerry West, but if they had to change it, it'd be that Kobe fadeaway jump shot or Michael Jordan jump shot.
How about Dirk and his fadeaway jumper?
I've seen that too, and they actually have a silhouette
on the floor
court,
at American Airlines Center. Yeah,
on each side. I did see that. I think that'd be too extreme because only he did one like that, where it's that dramatic of a fall away. I know Chamberlain had a extended fall away shot, but that dude was like 7'2", whatever. But yeah, just a simple like jumper. I think that'd be cool. Anybody that has a famous like Jordan or Kobe, just something like that. Instead of a dribbler, you have a shooter. But hopefully, for history purposes, it will stay Jerry West.
I would agree. Christy Wilson said, the NBA better not change the logo. Mm-hmm. It is so iconic. I mean, I agree. Absolutely, for sure. Christy Wilson actually agreed with me. I actually would not be mad if the NBA changed the logo in honor of Bill Russell, a true legend. I believe, James, that all 30 clubs are now retiring.
Yeah.
Or have retired his number in his honor.
And 2 or 3 places have the number hung. Chase Center, because he played for the University of San Francisco, has number 6 retired. I think Miami has the number 6 retired, along with Dan Marino and Michael Jordan, whatever. And I think, somewhere else, but then, everybody else.
Other than Boston, yeah.
Boston. And then I think everybody else either has a 6 on the court or it's just not allowed to be worn anymore.
I believe, though, that the NBA did grandfather in guys who were already wearing the number to still wear it in Bill's honor, I believe, too.
It's just weird. All I can think about is number 6. I think of LeBron, and that's all there is.
He went back to 23, though, after Bill passed away, I believe, too.
Yeah, maybe that's because he kept switching back and forth, and I was wondering why, and I guess that's why. But yeah, I think he's the last one. It's funny trying to remember who was the last 42 before in baseball, before Jackie, or that was retired. I think it was Mariano Rivera.
Had to be Mo,
York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, Christy says that she suspects that the league logo for the WNBA is supposed to be Diana Taurasi. I believe too. Just like the hair, the bun, and then her going with the left hand. I don't think I've ever seen Diana Taurasi not have her hair in a bun, except draft day 20 years ago. It's been that long. Good grief! When she came out of UConn, God, that was back when the Mercury was still like the red and yellow in 2004. They didn't really adapt the Suns' color scheme at the time. They were like borderline, but not full-fledged orange and purple at the time. 20 years ago. Good grief. It's been that damn long. James, going off the board for me, man, I love like the year of 2024, not for the fact I turned 30, but it's a Olympic year, my friend. And that means that we are going to be gearing up for some Olympic game coverage on our program in roughly almost a month from now, or about July 26th is opening ceremony. So I've been compiling the long list of like what events are on, what time, what channel, what platform. And of course, I've been watching when I've had time the swimming trials for the for Team USA. James, I don't know if you're really if you're a big Olympic guy, but is there like maybe one event during the course of either Olympics you have to watch just to say that you watched it?
Okay, for the Summer Olympics, it's definitely women's and men basketball, and I love the 3-on-3 by the way too.
Yes, dude.
Um,
Have you seen that roster for Team
yeah,
USA for women's 3-on-3? Holy Toledo!
they're gonna win that. I hope. Um, for winter, it's got to be curling. I don't know why, but years ago on
Yes,
Versus, I would watch like Friday
curling night in
night
America.
curling night in America. Yeah, like 10, 12 years. I can't remember when it was, but I was like, you know what? This is actually cool. I don't know what the hell drove me. I
I don't
think
know
because
what
I
the
was
hell we're
playing
doing
bocce
here,
ball.
but if Team USA is competing, I'm a curling expert.
Yeah, and I think because I was playing bocce ball at the time, so it's kind of like similarities. And I was like,
Yeah,
you know what?
that makes sense. That makes
I think
sense.
I combined the two together because I'm a visual learner. So I love curling for some reason. Um, but there's volleyball, also in the summer. But it,
Track
it
and
was
field.
yeah, but it would have to be basketball and curling.
Yeah, I mean, I love just watching sports I usually don't watch. Now, I work in volleyball. I don't watch volleyball 24/7, but I work college volleyball, so I'll watch volleyball, beach or indoor of the variety. You know, I've been really loved. I really have loved watching the swim trials. Katie Ledecky's a beast. I don't know,
Hmm.
like if anyone could stop her. I really feel like though that man, probably I'd say gymnastics and swimming are probably the two ones I watch the most during the course of the summer games. Because I think, basketball just feels like it's a foregone conclusion. I know that there's that chance of an upset somewhere, but
Hmm.
I'm watching more for for Team USA women this year because there's a chance here that we could have Diana Taurasi win 6 consecutive Olympic golds in Olympic women's basketball in 2024 for
That's
Team
amazing.
USA. And but I also like just enjoy the variety, like archery and equestrian, and I love watching track and field. I'm going to be really in tune to see Team USA women race against Jamaica because I know that Sha'Carri Richardson is back in the Olympics this year, and she has been, having a lot of these exhibition races with the Jamaican national team, and it's been, there's been no barbs, but it's like a very nice, respectable rivalry going on. So certainly going to be watching that, and obviously wintertime for me, that means hockey. Men's and
Yeah.
women's hockey, of course, is a thing. But I also love snowboarding. Again, Shaun White, San Diego native who retired after the last Winter Games. I always would watch that. Chloe Kim, who's from LA County, watching her as well during the course of the game. So I love the Olympics for the variety of sports, James, across the board. And more than anything else, like you said, though, the variety of sports and watching sports you don't watch 24/7, like what we have here in the States.
Yeah, I forgot about hockey too. I was trying to remember what I watched in the last winter games.
Curling. Let's go,
Was
baby.
curling. It was curling and hockey most definitely. Those were the two I was watching because you got me into the Olympic hockey for both women's and men with your background, and then yeah, curling was just that. And then yeah, I'm hoping to get into more of the volleyball. I'm hoping to do that. Like it was a different time in '04 and '08 with Missy Me and Kerry Wash. It was just that was the
Oh,
best time for
absolutely.
me
Big
because
time.
the the Olympic team, the NBA team that they had, just just lost, and they were awful. And I was like, I needed a pickup, and they picked me up after that, so that was great. Um, reason I watch basketball too because I just want to see where those former NBA players are playing now. for different countries.
Right.
And then if there could be upsets, just because it always seems like since that '04 upset of USA, where it's like, okay, the world is starting to get closer to the US when it comes to competitive basketball and if they could beat each other. I always love Charles Barkley and some of the things he says. And one thing he said, the NBA is scared to have the All-Star game be international versus the USA for the All-Star game. But that'd be an
Because of that
idea
reason.
to spice it up, though. That would be a great idea to spice up the All-Star game. So that's kind of like my All-Star games when I watch those
Most
Olympic
definitely.
games.
Yeah, and I think that there are some great storylines. Will Team USA Gymnastics on the women's side rebound? Gabby Douglas, I believe, called out or pulled herself out of the Olympics in 2024, citing, I think, mental health and injury. But how will Simone Biles, be after she left early in Tokyo, 3-4 years ago? USA Swimming, of course, will have their rivalry on the men's side with the Aussies. But also, I'm in this for Katie Ledecky. I think, James, we all remember Michael Phelps in 2008. Could he catch the legendary Mark Spitz? And he did in 2008. Now we have this other, budding star in USA Swimming with Ledecky, but also like Reagan Smith and some other, Missy Franklin, like other swimmers now are becoming, they may not be Ledecky, but man, like we have, like there's other great swimmers coming up the pipeline, and watching the trials from Indianapolis. And by the way, they've been having some great crowds at Lucas Oil Stadium when the Colts play. They've had over 20,000 people at all 4 days so far of the Olympic trials for swimming. And, Aaron Shackle, I believe, already qualified day one. Ledecky qualified day one as well. So, like, more and more of the pieces are falling in, though. But I also think, though, James, that I believe that the diving trials were also going on. And there were a couple of, like, really cool storylines that I believe that there's a correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm trying to remember. I believe I saw a IG video of a two sisters qualified for swim and dive, I believe, out of the University of Virginia, I think, and they're going to Paris for Team USA. So I like the buildup, though, too, James, of like watching the athletes competing to get to Paris. And I also, though, James, love, though, when a race is over and if in the top three people move on to the next round, I love how they're all like, yeah, let's go. Like they're already kind of getting this team chemistry already together. And this is still like in the heats, like the qualifying, but they're already kind of like locking in slowly but surely, once they know that they're going to go to Paris. I just absolutely love seeing how even in the trials, James, Team USA is really coming together, though, and how that their camaraderie and their chemistry is already becoming a thing. And we're still a month away from opening ceremonies in Paris.
One thing I was looking at too, golf's been kind of crazy lately with Scott Scheffler and the on course, off course things he's
What a
done.
finish too at the U.S. Open, though, on Sunday.
And then what happened on Sunday with McElroy, losing it there. But the roster is set for them for the U.S. and it's McElroy, Scheffler, Rahm,
Scheffler, Shoffley, Collin Morikawa, and I forget the fourth member, but James, 3 of those 4 guys are household names.
Yeah.
And the world, and I think like world number 1 in Scheffler, very intriguing young prospects in Morikawa and Shoffley. And then the 4th man of that crew, I kind of dig that team right now for Team USA on the golf side.
Yeah, so I'm noticing that, and the men's team for the NBA for the NBA for the Olympic team is pretty much set, and they shouldn't lose. I'd be shocked. And then also I'm learning that Ralph Lauren is designing the Olympic uniforms, and the ceremony uniforms will include blue jeans. So I'm interested to see how that looks, because normally You have the white pants with the navy blue blazer, and so this is kind of a I like kind of seeing what the other countries look like too when they come out for the opening ceremonies and they walk around the track or whatever. I kind of like seeing that too, just to see what other countries look like and what they're dressed like.
Yeah, and I think Ralph Lauren has done the ceremony attire, I think, for like the last several, like it's been like a long time partnership between Team USA and Ralph Lauren. I do recall when I met the Olympic team in 2018 on the women's hockey side at Staples Center at a Kings Vegas game that a lot of them had like these really sweet jackets, and obviously it was the wintertime games. I'm like, I would kill to get one of these jackets, but I think some people had them on eBay or even like Team USA store would even have them. Like, I'd love to get one of those like Olympic team jackets just to have. I'm not a damn Olympian, but I just would love to have that just to wear to represent my home country, as a average Joe who works in sports media, just to have that. But certainly, yeah, I mean, Summer Olympics coming up in just about a month. July 26th is the opening ceremony. And I believe every event will be on Peacock and across multiple platforms on USA, NBC, CNBC, you name it. I'm literally, folks, working on a giant spreadsheet in Google Sheets that has every single event, what day, what network, what time, so I can watch them. And of course, you can catch them on Peacock as well. All right, James, we've gone way over the cliff here with our time here, my man. We will first, James, get to final thoughts for tonight's program. A great show tonight. Nice to be back here after we had a nice little hour-long baseball segment, some basketball talk on the men's and women's side, and some puck talk, and, of course, Olympic coverage as well because, hey, why not?
Yeah, it's been a great show. One thing I saw over the weekend was the Big Three come back, and they were in Oakland in their first stop. And I did notice, Lisa Leslie was still coaching one team, but Nancy Lieberman was doing the color analyzing of the game. And I just love hearing her talk about the game. She's really good at it, and she was great at coaching. And I remember her playing for the WNBA, for the Mercury, I think back in the day. And she's a trailblazer. I just wanted to give Nancy a definite shout out. She's great.
Yeah, I love Nancy Lieberman. She came back and played in a couple of games at age 50 with the Shock, I think, when they were still in Detroit. Trailblazing pioneer of the sport, led, I believe, the Mavericks G League team to a G League title, I believe, at one point. I also believe she led a Big Three team as well to a Big Three title as well.
Oh, yeah.
So great to see Nancy still being involved with basketball in some capacity. And hey, she's in the Hall of Fame for a reason as a player, and I would even say now as a coach and now as a media contributor as well. With that, folks, final thoughts from yours truly. Again, a great program tonight. Major thank you to Big B, Brandon Herrera, alongside Christy Wilson, Jason Barber, for all joining us here tonight on this Tuesday into Wednesday morning show. Wow. Here today into this now Wednesday morning. Again, folks, one more reminder for you. We are cooking up, folks, our first live episode of the Elite Draft League's Puck and Roll podcast coming your way on Friday. Time right now to be determined because we know that we don't want to infringe upon James's time with his crew on Entertainment Hour. I can, though, confirm for you folks that our first guest host will be our media correspondent, Gabe John, who will join me on Puck and Roll on Friday to preview the season, talk about the Elite Draft League, and preview the first slate of games on Saturday from the Eskimo Sports Center here in San Diego. Again, if you folks missed out on that announcement, but again, Coast to Coast Entertainment is the proud home of the Elite Draft League San Diego's podcast that will be airing here on Fridays and Sundays. Following our game days on Saturdays, this is a brand new men's roller hockey league here in San Diego County. I'm serving as the league's PA announcer, public address announcer, and as their podcast host for this endeavor. So we'll again, folks, have that coverage for you on Friday with myself and Gabe, John, and some others. Hopefully, will join and stop by the program on Friday. We'll preview the season. We'll talk about the league. We'll talk about the slate of games on Saturday. Then on Sunday, we'll recap the action. We will have exclusive interviews with the players of the week of the first two games of the EDL on Sunday evening as well. So great stuff coming away, folks. We're working on some of the intangibles. We'll have plenty more about that for you folks. So I have a big meeting on Thursday at the rink with our group. So I'll have more for you folks, hopefully on the web on Thursday. And we'll go from there as time moves on. With that, though, folks, again, a great show tonight. Thanks to Christy and Brandon and J-Mac for helping out in the comment box. And as always, we'll see you folks back here on Wednesday, officially on Wednesday, with more C2C programming back here. For James Gonzales, Cal McClurg, saying good day, good night, and good morning. And a great rest of your Tuesday into Wednesday, folks. Till next time.